This video will be a failure, and it has to be because it was written by a pillar of salt, to paraphrase Kurt Vonnegut. I have a tattoo on my upper left arm. It's the tombstone from Slaughterhouse-Five, one of my favorite novels ever written. I have 4 tattoos, 2 on each arm. I want to get more, but I don't know where to put them because I don't want to get any tattoos on my legs or feet or face or tits. Maybe my lower back. I finally graduated from college last year at the age of 43. Got my Bachelor of Arts in English with a concentration in creative writing from UTSA. And it was a motherfucker passing just basic college algebra, so I thought, okay, to reward myself for passing this fucking course, I'm going to get the quadratic formula tramp stamp. So I do intend to do that. Even though a former lover told me that I should leave my back alone. He didn't know what he was doing, and then anyway, it didn't work out. I didn't want it to work out. He didn't make the cut, so I don't really need to live my life according to his advice. I will get the quadratic formula tramp stamp at some point. Okay. I mentioned in my first astrology video that the first astrology book I ever read was some generic book on the Libra sun sign I got from the Jefferson Elementary Library when I was 8 years old. But the first astrologer that really sparked my fascination with the subject was Linda Goodman. I read Sun Signs when I was 15 or 16, and then I read Love Signs, and I have referenced this book many times over the years. And it's just going by sun signs, so of course, it's not that in-depth, but I just like how she writes about the various combinations. Aquarius woman, Aries man is probably my favorite. I've never been in love with an Aries. An Aries did pop my cherry when I was 22. I was a late bloomer. In Texas, most girls lose their virginity when they're 12 years old. That's pretty common. But it wasn't for lack of trying. I had an experience when I was 17. I guess I had an especially tough hymen hell. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. Never went to prom or anything. I was very much an introvert. I'm not a typical Aquarian. A typical Aquarian is an extrovert. Usually outgoing, very gregarious, socially adept. I'm socially awkward. I'm a late degree Aquarian. The cusp thing is controversial. Some people believe in the cusp, some don't. Well, the cusp applies to me because when I was born, the sun was at 29 degrees Aquarius, which means in the progressed chart, all of my childhood and into my early 20s, my progressed sun was in Pisces. And my progressed moon just recently left Pisces for Aries. So I absolutely have the Pisces flavor. And I have my Mercury at 14 degrees Pisces. And I have a grand mutable cross in my chart, which means I'm absolutely not a typical Aquarian. And I have my Sun and my Venus not conjunct. The Venus is 16 degrees. But Aquarius in the 6th house, house of Virgo. I have Virgo rising and a Virgo moon. And I have some pretty intense squares in my chart. My Mercury at 14, Pisces, tightly squares my Saturn, 10th house Saturn no less, at 13 degrees Gemini. And I guess one of the most problematic things in my chart is that I have a potent Pluto, 3 degrees Libra, tightly squaring my 4 degrees Capricorn Mars. So I've got a bad temper. And I'm highly sexual, but I can't keep a man. I have 3 exes from last year alone. If any of those men had really wanted me, they probably would still have me, even though I ended the relationships. I don't know. I'm very complicated. It's hard being me. It's so fucking hard. But I like the section on the Aquarius woman and the Aries man. Even though I've never been in love with an Aries, just had sex with an Aries once or twice. I have some cardinal stuff in my chart, and I'm I'm very old school. I'm very traditional when it comes to men. I'm heterosexual. I'm pretty vanilla. I like being dominated. I like the man to lead in all aspects of the relationship, which is absolutely nothing like an Aquarian. Aquarians are very progressive and they're very dominant. They have dominant personalities and they're usually superior intellectually to their partners, but I prefer being with a man who knows more shit than I do. But I'm also weird in that maybe it's because I have a Capricorn Mars. I don't know. Even though I'm intensely creative, I'm an artist and a writer, I don't necessarily look for that in a mate. I don't look for a man who is a writer or an artist. I have in the past. But what I'm most drawn to, I mean, like I mentioned in my first video, the man that I loved the most, my most recent ex, we had a tumultuous on-again, off-again relationship that began in December 2012 and it ended last November. We were going to get married December 2016 and something happened and I basically dumped him via text message. But it was mutual. He didn't really want me or he would have had me. Anyway, he's absolutely not creative, not a writer, not a poet, not an artist, but he's very good with his hands and he's very good with the practical stuff. And he's a survivor, and that's what appeals to me. Someone who maybe they come from a really dark, twisted, fucked up place. For example, the first man that I married, this was back when we got married in 2000. We met in 2000 and we got married in 2000. That's weird. Yeah, I'm thinking about how weird that is. We met online in 2000 and then we got married. We met in March, I think. And we got married that December. Anyway, I was very idiotic, even more so than I am now, about astrology. And I just went by sun signs. I didn't know about orbs or the progress chart really, or aspects and all that. I just knew that he was a Libra. And I'm an Aquarius, so we were compatible. No, we weren't. No, we aren't. But he has a Libra sun, moon, and ascendant. I think he might possibly have Mars in Libra. I don't remember his information. But one thing I learned about our dynamic was that I could never really truly relate to him and feel close, feel true kinship with him, because our childhoods were so radically different. We might as well have been from different planets. I mean, he had a very loving, supportive, normal upbringing. The man that I loved the most, the man I almost married last December, he had a very fucked up childhood. And he thinks that his was more fucked up than mine, but we both had it pretty rough as kids. And so there was this kinship between us. We both have survived a lot. Not just things beyond our control, like our childhoods, but mistakes that we have made and addiction. I'm not going to get into all that. I am not technically an addict or an alcoholic. I've gone to one 12-step meeting, well, on my own. I went to plenty of meetings with him. I went to a Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous meeting once, and I cried so hard I was embarrassed to ever go back, because I never went back after that initial meeting. I identified as a love addict for years. Now I think, looking at most people in my life, I don't think, to me, I don't identify as a love addict. I think that's too generic. I have addictive tendencies. When I drink with a man like my ex, I tend to drink to excess. I've almost died a few times from alcohol poisoning. Almost swallowed died swallowing my own vomit like Bon Scott or whatever. But anyway, I do intend to start going to Al-Anon meetings because my life right now is very hard. I feel like it would be a lot easier if I was financially independent and I had my own place and I had more just freedom. I don't have that right now. I live a very monastic existence. It's almost like I'm in prison. But I know all the ways in which I'm fortunate. I know that I'm damn fortunate to be alive, and I'm damn fortunate not to be homeless. Astrology. So I've always liked the Aquarius, Aries section, Aquarius Libra, Aquarius Leo. One of my least favorite sections is the Aquarius woman, Capricorn man, but the man that I loved the most, the hardest, the longest, the deepest, happens to be a Capricorn. Again, these are just sun signs. And people who dismiss astrology, they tend to dismiss it on the basis of just the sun signs and the shit you see in popular culture, the magazines, the forecast, or whatever. If you have any kind of curiosity at all, and you really delve deep into astrology, you see that it's fascinating. There are layers. I only know that I've applied it to my own life since I was a kid, and I've absolutely seen validity. I've seen patterns. And I recently, I think I mentioned this, I do mention this in my first astrology ramble, that I'm out of breath because I was dancing naked in my Goodwill high heels to salsa music. I made a video of that. You can't see that I'm naked. You can just see my legs and my high heels. I need my inhaler. I've had asthma since I was a kid. Just a second. Okay. Yeah, there are layers. I don't have the greatest Mercury. I've got a muddled Mercury. Mercury at 14 Pisces in the 7th. So, I do ramble, and my thoughts are very disorganized. I'm intensely creative, but I just can't get shit done. I mean, I can. I've been writing and publishing books since 2005 when I published my first novel for NaNoWriMo, Nova's Gone Potty. I signed up for it, and I thought, what the hell am I going to write about? And then just, boom, hit me. I'm going to write about a girl who is constipated. She has chronic constipation, and she spends so much time on the toilet it starts talking to her in Ozzy Osbourne's voice. So that's my first novel, Nova's Gone Potty. It's available at Amazon. What the fuck was I talking about? Oh yeah, the epiphany I had that I talk about in my first astrology ramble is that I've got a very complicated chart. Some people have a simple chart, and a simple chart would be like, for example, say you have Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Moon, Aquarius Rising, Mercury in Aquarius, Venus and Mars in Aquarius. That's an exaggeration, I guess. I guess it does exist, but if you have a stellium in one sign, one house, both, that's pretty basic, and that's, I would say, pretty fortunate. You could have a more intense presence, a more intense personality, I guess, if you're that hardcore of an Aquarian. But I'm scattered. My chart is very scattered. I've got a gray mutable cross. I'm an Aquarius, yes, but I'm a 6th degree. 6th degree. I'm scattered right now. 29 degree Aquarius sun. In the 6th house, which is the house of Virgo, I've got Virgo rising and a Virgo moon. I've got a gray mutable cross, which means I've got Neptune and fucking Sagittarius in the 4th house. And it tightly squares my 1st house Virgo moon. And I've got Mercury and Pisces in the 7th, and it tightly squares my 10th house Saturn and Gemini. And then I've got that pesky, tight Mars and Capricorn squaring Pluto and Libra thing. So, high sex drive, bad temper. My epiphany, and this is all going somewhere, I promise. Is that I've got a complicated chart, so I had to zero in on what I think are the two most important aspects of my chart. And that's how I will find satisfaction with a long-term romantic sexual partner. I say that I'm sexually vanilla with a raspberry swirl. Whatever the hell that means. I'm a voyeur. I like men. I like dick. I'm very sexual, but I can't just be with a man for the sake of sex. There has to be some stuff there. There has to be some depth, and there has to be communication. So what I found, I've zeroed in on my chart, and I found that I have to be with a man who contacts my Mercury, 14 degrees Pisces in the 7th, and my moon, 6 degrees Virgo in the 1st. And, you know, of course, I've studied the charts of the men who are most important to me, my most important exes. For example, the Capricorn that I was going to marry last December, he doesn't aspect my Mercury. He aspects my moon, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't a tight enough aspect. So there has to be a tight aspect with the moon and the Mercury. What the fuck does that mean? Moon is your emotions. Moon is really your day-to-day routines, but also your emotions. And I have to feel emotionally safe with a man, and our routines have to be somewhat similar. And that's why I loved my most recent ex so much, because it might have been boring to a lot of people, but his routine made sense to me. Just how he went about his business on a day-to-day basis. He wasn't crazy, creative, all over the place. He was very concentrated, very by the book. He had a spiral notebook. He would get a black ink pen and write down everything, every purchase. You know, he kept receipts. And to me, that wasn't boring. It was fucking hot. I mostly am a vegetarian. I eat meat on occasion, but he doesn't eat the way I do. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I go on about that in my first video, but, you know, I couldn't be with a man who isn't mindful of what he eats or doesn't take care of himself in some way. A man who just smokes and just drinks constantly, or does drugs, or eats a bunch of shitty food, a bunch of fast food, and just sits and is a couch potato and just watches TV constantly, or is always trolling Facebook for masturbation material or whatever. A man's routines, they have to make sense to me. The way he conducts himself in day-to-day life has to make sense to me. That's the moon. And Mercury is the life of the mind, how you communicate. I consider myself an idiot, but I'm a wannabe intellectual. I write a lot. I read a lot. I try really fucking hard. It took me several attempts to finally get a college degree last year. You know, college algebra was quite the mindfuck for me. I'm not really a rational, logical, linear thinker. I'm just all over the place. And so I realize that I'm very quirky. I still play with toys. I make really crazy videos using toys and stuff. And most men won't have the first idea how to approach that. So I need a man. And this has happened in my life. It's happened, I could probably count on one hand. The men I've encountered where we had marathon telephone conversations. I actually had that with my first husband, the Libra. We had to in the beginning because we were in two different states. We were thousands of miles apart. And so when we began, we had to talk on the phone. And this was back before cell phones. Well, no, it wasn't, but I didn't have a cell phone and neither did he. We would talk for hours. And the first guy I really cared about, this guy that I met in high school, he was a Capricorn. We would talk for hours on the phone. The Capricorn that I was going to marry in December, we did not have phone marathons. It wasn't really about communication with us. There was an understanding between us because we came from a similar place. But as far as discussing books and music and movies and philosophies and ideologies and all that, we didn't have that between us. Oh, the battery's dying. I've already gone past 20 minutes. This is absolutely a fuck-ass ramble. I will stop here and see if what I've recorded is worth posting to YouTube. Okay, thanks.